Are you insane? I don't mean mentally ill. I mean, do you ever catch yourself doing the same things day in, day out, and wishing, hoping, expecting something would be different? Well, if you mean that, let's go. This is the Next Simple Step podcast. I'm Paul Goldsmith. Sometimes people are held back by a lack of information. You just don't know what to do next. You're just stuck. But more often than not, what keeps you where you're at without changing your circumstances is it's a pride mixed with fear. You've made it this far. You've already spent so much time getting to where you're at. You've got too much to lose if you change. Does that sound familiar? If you turn back now, you'll have to start all over. And that's incredibly humbling. There's a lot at risk. Well, I would challenge you, you have more at risk staying where you're at, disheartened. If your heart is not in what you're doing or your circumstances, it's time to pivot. Pivoting doesn't mean a 180 turnaround where you're going to one direction and you go completely the opposite way. No, pivoting means by changing a degree, you do it over time and it's less shocking to the system. You're not the same person you were 5 or 10 years ago. Think back to where you were 10 years ago. Could you have predicted all the twists and turns? Of course not. And you can't predict the next 5 or 10 years, but you can recalibrate your trajectory to become the kind of person you want to become, to do the things you really want to do over time. And so just ask you, what has to happen in your life, in your career, for you to feel successful over the next 5 years? I want to encourage you to maybe not necessarily think about a job title or a particular company, but the kind of work you want to be doing at that point. And maybe you love your job now. Will you love it in 5 years? Who knows? But maybe there's a different skill set that you want to learn. And now's a great time to explore it. Rather than making a sudden change, you can start to get curious. And people do this every day. It just takes slowing down and really processing your thoughts. That's why I highly recommend morning pages, 3 pages every morning, writing down your thoughts and really get down to what the seeds of discontent are so that you can start exploring and getting curious, not judgmental, about how you might learn a new skill or apply for a different craft, whatever it is. There's a great video that went viral from a neurosurgeon, Dr. Gooby. I don't think that's his real name, but he's a neurosurgeon. And the video starts like this.
So I used to be a neurosurgeon, went to college at MIT and did 4 years of medical school and 6 years of neurosurgery training. And I was a neurosurgeon for almost 10 years. After all of that. So that's 20 years of my life. And I quit.
Gooby is a character. No wonder the video's gone viral. Though it's about 50 minutes in length. I'll put the link in the show notes if you want to watch the whole thing. But the point is, he trained for a decade and then worked as a neurosurgeon and along the way got disheartened. What he realized was that while he was able to help some people, more often than not, he was not able to help people that he was supposed to do surgery on. And he really got disenfranchised by that. And so it took him about a year with his wife to plan his exit strategy. And now he has this YouTube channel, Gooby and Doobie, and Doobie's his dog. He's living his best life in the mountains, sharing nature sounds. And that's quite a dramatic pivot. But I can only imagine you go to school for 10 years to be a neurosurgeon, and then you spend another 10 years actually being a surgeon. And halfway through, you realize that this isn't what you thought it was, that the system is designed to give people surgeries, but that's not what's making people better. People with healthier lifestyles, as he explains in the video, are the ones that get better with diet and exercise and less stress, being in nature, which is exactly his lifestyle now. And so it's incredibly inspiring. He's living his ethos. He's living according to his values. And really, that's what I want to encourage you to do, because circumstances change and maybe you're in a place where you aren't where you want to be, or it was good for a season, but it's not now. And I know a number of people that were let go after very long and successful careers, 20, 30 years, and then they were forced to become entrepreneurs. And I saw them on the first or second week after they got let go, and they looked pretty wrecked. And then I saw them a year or 2 years later, and they were so joyful because they had freedom and they were learning that the job that they had spent their whole career in wasn't the be all end all. There was life after that career. It took a forced departure to get to that realization, but now they're grateful for that. And so I'd just like to encourage you, maybe don't wait to be laid off by a company. Decide where it is you want to be. And maybe it's in the same company, but a different department. And I just heard a story from a friend today that really inspired me as well, because he was burnt out in his career. He had climbed the mountain and was at the top of his game, and saved up some money and decided to leave his career and restart. And so he did. He pivoted, and he got curious about what he might like to do next. And then he started pursuing that passion. He started at the beginning. He humbled himself to actually apply for an hourly job that was well beneath his skill set and what he was used to, but it was around the area that he wanted to work. And in 4 months' time, he got offered a full-time management level position. And again, it's not up to the same level that he was before in his previous career, but this new industry has a much higher ceiling, much greater potential. And so while he's building back in relatively short period of time, because he was able to humble himself and start at the beginning, he's going to be able in 5 years' time to be much further than he ever was before. And maybe that's true for you. Now, there are no guarantees, but you have to start taking the next simple steps in that direction. And it's amazing what happens when you do that. And I have to tell you, there's no guarantees of success, but you're playing an infinite game, because if what you try doesn't work, then you'll try something else. The goal is to just have a beginner's mind and be humble and learn what you can learn from the situation. And I love the phrase, you win or you learn. And it's so true. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to learn from really painful experiences, a job loss, or embarrassing ourselves. We don't wish that, but then we learn from that and we're better for it. And so I'm just suggesting that maybe you take the wheel and decide that you're going to pivot now before you're compelled to pivot for some external circumstances, but take more internal control of aligning yourself of where you want to be down the road. You don't get there overnight, so you really have to make sure you're headed in that direction. And just one other idea that comes to mind that I think really holds a lot of folks back is called the sunk cost fallacy, because you spend a lot of time on something, you really want to make it work, but somewhere along the line, you realize that you gave your best. This isn't going anywhere good. You should just chalk it up to an expensive lesson and move on. But too many of us double down. It's like, well, I've already spent this much on it. I need to make it work. And I've learned this in my consulting business with companies that have particular software, and they were sold this amazing software that was going to solve all their problems. And so they integrate all of their systems with this particular software. And a year down the road, they realized that it's not what they had hoped. And it's actually created more problems than it solved. But there's a resistance for anybody to go back to the CEO and say, man, we screwed up. We spent a bunch of money. We tried something and it's actually made things worse. That takes a ton of courage. However, the alternative is we just try to make the wrong thing work, and it frustrates everyone. It kills morale. And even worse than when you've got the wrong fit software is You have the wrong fit opportunity for your current interest and mindset. You've pivoted before. You can do it again. It may sound cliche, but it's true. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Just embrace humility, nurture that curiosity, and be willing to learn as you go, because the path to a more fulfilling and exciting life is to start with courage and take the next simple step as you go. I hope this has been beneficial to you. And if you'd like to reach out, you can do so at thenextsimplestep.com. I'm Paul Goldsmith, and I'll talk to you next time on the Next Simple Step Podcast.